Hi there, my name is Dr. Jessie Mahoney, and I am here to share with you a presentation about mindful sex is where it's at. And I plan to share how mindful sex, as opposed to mindful sex, is the better way to go. I am a mindful life and relationship coach and a yoga instructor, and also a board certified pediatrician and physician wellness leader. I am the founder of Pause and Presence, where I offer one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and also lots of yoga. So I also wanted to add as a start that I am a graduate of this course. And so I'm bringing this talk knowing some of the other components of the course and having experienced the learnings from Sonia about sex. And a little bit of background about me. I have been married for 28 years and have had some struggles along the way in my marriage. And at this point, things are going very well, thanks to coaching and shifts in my own mindset. And what I learned in this course is that when I approach sex as mostly good, it is mostly good. And that often our physician mindset sets us up to think that things need to be fixed or could be better. And that sometimes enjoying what you have and approaching things mindfully, even when they aren't perfect, even when there's injuries, even when there's different libidos, even when there's stories and lots that has happened over a very long relationship, that showing up mindfully and in the present can be a really powerful approach. And so that's what I offer today. And the first thing I wanted to share is this concept of mindful sex versus mindful sex. And mindful sex has one L, and mindful sex is the sex where your mind is full, with two L's, full of distractions, stories, ruminations, judgments about yourself and your body and others. And the mindful sex probably has all the to-do lists of things that you need to do and things that would take you away from being in the moment and enjoying it. And the mindful sex, which I would like to offer, is this idea of being aware and being in the moment and being open-minded and present. It also isn't focused on a goal. And I think that's one of the things that this course really reflects on, is the idea that you don't need to have a goal around sex. And I think many of us do have goals around what it should look like, or what it should feel like, or what your partner's goal is, or how often you should be having it. And that perhaps there doesn't need to be a goal. And perhaps it's really just a moment of enjoying and being together. So at the outset, I wanted to share a little bit about what mindfulness is for those of you that are maybe not as comfortable or know about it. And so mindfulness is being in the moment. And that mindful sex is about being in the moment. It's about being in your body and enjoying where you are in that moment. Not what happened before, not what might happen ahead, but what's happening in this moment. And when you're in the moment, you can enjoy it that much more, whatever it is. And the tenets of mindfulness, I think, really make the project, if you would want to call it that, or the experience much, much better. And so I wanted to share the 9 sort of pillars of mindfulness that Jon Kabat-Zinn shares. And the sort of theory of mindfulness are: noticing is the first one, being aware is the second one, beginner's mind is what he uses. I like to call it curiosity, non-judgment, acceptance, non-striving, patience, trust, letting go, intention, gratitude, and generosity. And when I think about these tenets, which I think I'll say again, because I think it's really helpful to hear them all: noticing, being aware, showing up with curiosity or beginner's mind, non-judgment, non-striving, acceptance, patience, trust, letting go, gratitude, generosity, and intention. And if you bring these to the experience of sex, and really truly to the experience of your relationships as a whole, whether it be with your partner, with yourself, with your children, anywhere in your life, your colleagues even, things go much better. And the mindfulness is really something that helps you focus and attend in a world of distractions. And when you are mindful, there's less anxiety, there's less distractions, and you can focus on the sensations and shifting your awareness to the body, which, as you can imagine, makes the experience that much better. And I think that so often our minds wander about judgment of what ifs, or what I wish this person would do or not do, or what they did before, and all the things. And so using these tools of mindfulness can really truly change your experience of sex and change your experience of your relationship. And so I often talk about how can we use mindfulness and intention to transform our relationships, which might be transform our sex challenges into amazing sex, is what I thought I might talk a little bit more about from this point forward. And so these are tips for having mindful sex being present, aware, noticing, non-judgment, non-striving, curiosity, attention, acceptance, letting go, trust, and intention, all of those things. And so my first tip would be to pause and be present. And this is something that I apply to pretty much everything in my life. And it's the mindful part, showing up, pausing, taking this time out of your day to be fully present, to get out of your head and all the mind spin and all the mind churn and back into your body. Stopping that constant mind chatter, which I know as a fellow woman physician turns around in your head. Being in the moment, noticing, being aware, and being curious are really the tenets there that I think are most powerful and most helpful. So can you pause in the moments when you are having connection and be present? And also to allow, to enjoy. In the presence, you get to choose how you want to show up. So in mindfulness, we talk about the space between the stimulus and the response as being where your intention is. And in many moments, we don't want to be reactive. We want to be intentional. And what I would offer here is, can you just enjoy the moment between the stimulus and the response without judging it, just being present and just experiencing it? Mindfulness also, the noticing and awareness taps you right into your body. So really tapping into noticing the sensations and noticing the feelings and noticing your partner, and often tapping into really describing, perhaps if your mind is spinning and going off on all the other thoughts, can you come right back to this moment and just focus on a feeling, describe it? When you focus on that and just allowing it rather than trying to turn it into something else or having a goal, you experience it in a whole new, likely much more pleasurable way. So the other piece of that I just want to reflect on is the non-judgment. We often get off in our heads about the judgment about everything, honestly, how we're showing up, what we look like, what our partner is like, what the experience is like, is there enough time? And if you can just be in it, and just when the judgment pops up, because it 100% will, can you tie a balloon string to it and let it float off? That's the practice that I find really most helpful, is I just tie a balloon string up. There it is, no judgment, even that the thoughts are coming in that are about judgment, and you just let them go. So the second tool that I wanted to share today is wanting what you have. So this taps into the tenets or pillars of mindfulness of acceptance and gratitude. And I think so often, because so many of us are high achievers and perfectionists, we think things should be better, and we focus on how they could be fixed or improved rather than focusing on what we have. And perhaps an offering is, can you look for good in what you have, what is actually working as opposed to what's not working. And how does your partner show love? And what's working with closeness and connection and intimacy? How are you connected? How are they helping out? What does look good as opposed to what perhaps they need to work on? I think our tendency as women docs is to always want to fix things and always want to improve things. And what if you just focused on wanting what you actually have? I find that when I do that, your partner actually looks a lot more attractive, and you might actually be much more interested in sex, and that can be a tool to shift your mindset around from the constantly fixing and changing to accepting and perhaps even enjoying what you have. It isn't just a glass half full, ignore all the bad stuff. It's choosing to focus on the good because it feels better and because it's better for you. And that's really the intent, not to forgive or forget or move past, but to do things here that work better for you. And that's the offering in bringing mindfulness to sex as well. You're doing it for you, not for the other person, but because it will feel better to you. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it's where sex is at. If you're mindful, it feels better to you. So the third tip to share is focusing on what's in your control and letting go of what's not in your control. So we so often come to the bedroom and our relationships with lots of stories and drama and about things that are not in our control and things that we wish were different and had gone differently. And or the way that we wish our partner would show up or what we wish they would do. And what's in your control is what you say, what you do, and what you think about it. And so I offer this as a tool in all relationships, but certainly around the sex issue, it can be super powerful. And so what if you just focus on what you can do? Say what you want, ask for what you want. And if you want something to turn out in a certain way, show up with that in mind. The other thing is what's in your control is how you look in this moment and how your partner looks in this moment. And so we often want to change things. We wish our body were different. We wish perhaps their body were different. We wish the kids weren't screaming. We wish we'd had a lovely date beforehand or whatever it might be. And so accepting and allowing all of it as it is, because that's out of your control to change things as they are. The other thing that's in your control is to nourish yourself and to take good care of yourself before, after, during. And instead of thinking about, I wish my partner would do this, I want them to do this, this is what I need, taking care of your needs yourself. So if you want to feel beautiful, do something that makes you feel beautiful. Take a hot bath, do things that make you feel good so that you can show up in a way where you will ultimately feel better. That really taps into the tenet of mindfulness of acceptance and also of intention. And so how can you accept things as they are? And how do you intend for things to be? Focusing on the things that are within your control. Wanting other people to do things is a certain way. All that's in our control is asking them, and then we detach from the outcome. So the fourth tip that I wanted to share here with all of you is that sex and marriage and all relationships are really the long game. And I see this a lot as a pediatrician. People have a lot of scarcity mindset about certain times and in their lives and what's not going well. And perhaps you're just in a season of your relationship that is not full of sex, and that's okay. And rather than judging it and feeling negative and trying to resist reality, sometimes sinking into it, relaxing into it. That's what we do in yoga. When we have a difficult pose, we relax into it to make it the balance much easier. Relaxing into the fact that maybe parenting is a difficult season, or in my case, menopause. And that I may not be as interested, or my husband might be more interested, or vice versa. And that wherever you are is wherever you are. And having patience, the other tenet of mindfulness, patience around where each person is and how they're showing up, and non-judgment, and perhaps not striving to around more is better. It isn't necessarily more is better. Is quality better over quantity? What works for you as a couple in this moment? Perhaps there's no urgency to fix anything and there's no goal. And could you relax into whatever season of your sex relationship you happen to be in? And if someone has an injury or a medical problem, can you relax into that and just decide that this is where you are right now and that it's a long game? And this week is not necessarily a problem. It doesn't mean you don't change anything or you wish things were different or you don't want things to be different. But oftentimes just dropping the resistance and the frustration and seeing that there is plenty of time can really shift this spaciousness around the conversation and make more room for each person to show up exactly as they are, asking for exactly what they need. So tip number 5 is curiosity. And in mindfulness, we often refer to it as beginner's mind. And this again drops the judgment, coming into it just being curious about where you are, curious about how perhaps your body is working at this moment in time, and perhaps how your partner is working at this time. And curious about how things feel, perhaps curious. It doesn't mean you do things that feel uncomfortable, but when we come with curiosity, we're just much more open for whatever might be there. And I find that when my mind shifts to judgment, the easiest way back to being present is to be curious and to just ask yourself questions. And one of the tools that I often share is to ask yourself good questions. So good questions would be maybe, what if it were fun? What if there wasn't a problem? What if this 20 minutes I have could be spent really well? We often ask ourselves problems like, well, what if it's not working? Or what if there's pain? Or what if, well, I can't think of a good one, but at any rate, we ask ourselves not useful questions. And so training your brain to ask yourself useful questions, even about sex, can be really a powerful tool to flip yourself around. What feels good? What would feel good? What might work? Rather than nothing works, we're too busy, we need a babysitter, or everyone's working too hard, or, what might work? What could be fun? How could this work? What is working? Shifting your mind to seeing what is working can actually open you up to possibilities of more things that might work. So I find that to be a really helpful tool. Number 6 is being the change that you want to see. And that taps back into intention. So if you want your partner to do something, do that yourself. If you want to connect with them, show up connecting. If you want them to give you a hug or more affection, show up giving them more affection. Not because they shouldn't give it to you, because I think our brain gets into that, but because it feels good to you. And when you do that, you open the cracks for them to show up in different ways as well. They often have no idea what you want or need. And so I find that when you show up connecting, if you want connection, or show up being affectionate if you want affection, that can be a really powerful and mindful way to show up, because what you have to tap into is, what do you really want and what would feel good to you? And I think we often don't take the pause to attend to that and to notice that. The other offering here in being the change you want to see is thinking about how you want to feel about sex, not how the sex will feel, but how you want to feel about sex. I think many people coming to a course about sexuality have feelings about sex that perhaps they don't want, or they wish it were different. So leaning into this idea of, do you want to feel loving about it? Do you want to feel peaceful about it? Do you want to feel kind about it? Do you want to feel compassionate about it? Do you want to feel spacious about it? Do you want to feel relaxed about it? And so taking a little bit of time to think about what that feeling is for you that you want. So if you want to feel relaxed, I like to ask myself, well, what would relaxed do when it comes to sex. And that can help you set yourself up for success. What would peace do? Would peace push it? Would peace have a conversation? Would peace avoid? Would peace have conflict? Would peace be frustrated or resentful? What would peace do? And the key thing about these questions is to consider yourself first, not peace for the other person, but peace for you. What would peace do exactly for you? And what would love do is the other question that I am sort of known for. And the idea is, what would love do for you around sex? Would love judge how you look? Would love judge how it's going? Would love judge your libido? Would love accept and allow where you are? What would love do? And love for your partner too. And so if you have a partner, and if you don't, that's also fine. Love would probably accept that you don't right now and do what works for you and what feels good to you. So love would probably not judge yourself, judge them, or judge how it's going. And I offer this once again, not because you don't want things to be better, but because when we relax into it, it creates much more space and much more strength and much more possibility. So choosing how you want to feel is often, for me, a really spacious way to look about how I want to move forward. And it's a tool I use often. Many of us know when we think about it and pause how we want to feel. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know how often sex would be. We don't know exactly what acts we would do, but we know how we want to feel. And I find that when I tap into that, it creates a lot more spaciousness around what things could look like. And it helps me think in a more spacious, non-judgmental way about how I want to move forward and how I want to show up for my relationships and intimacy and sex. So the last tool that I wanted to share here is the idea of grace and compassion. And for many of us, compassion is difficult. So I would start just by not being mean to yourself. And a tenet of mindfulness, which I think I didn't mention in the beginning, is compassion or kindness. And non-judgment is compassion and kindness, and grace around all of the humorous things that may end up happening in the bedroom, or grace around C-section scars and perhaps your body not looking the way you want, or grace around children walking in on you in different backgrounds around sex, and maybe grace and compassion around if you're not interested right now. It usually doesn't mean the things that either you are making it mean or your partner is making it mean. And when I just ask myself, well, what would grace do, or what would compassion do, given that this is where we are right now? It creates a softness and a spaciousness for you to show up for yourself and potentially for your partner in a way that feels just much more in alignment and true and authentic. And that is where the connection comes from. And then I would offer grace and compassion around injuries. And I came into this program with a particular long-term hip injury that actually brought some challenges into sex and how to approach that and how to handle an injury that maybe you have judgment or frustration or resentment about. My injury came from an old car accident, but still causes me problems today, 15 years later. And how do you handle that when it impacts your ability to do things that you might want to do? And so just having grace and compassion around your body and how it works. And as I'm in my 50s now and heading farther along in life, grace and compassion for how things are going to shift and how you're going to show up and what things will look like when you're 60 and 70 and 80. And perhaps, I wish that I had had this tool in my 30s because it would have made things a lot more fun. So compassion for you first, compassion for your partner, compassion for your children and the world, if you have children, compassion for everyone. That sex is often a difficult, challenging topic that many people have a lot of judgment and a lot of mind spinning around. And many of us also have a lot of challenges in our ability to be present around sex and to be mindful. And so one of the things in mindfulness is the only way you can fail in mindfulness is judging yourself for not doing a good job. And I think that that is true of mindfulness and 100% true of mindful sex, the mindful sex where we are pausing and being present and allowing ourselves to enjoy it. And so can you tap back into non-judgment, even around your ability to be mindful in the bedroom? So around compassion, I wanted to offer at the end of this talk the idea that compassion for ourselves is really the most important thing here in being able to enjoy sex, in my mind. If we don't have compassion for ourselves, it's very hard for us to be connected and present. And a tool that I highly recommend for all of you is a tool called Hand to Heart. And this tool I got from a favorite book called Good Morning, I Love You. And I love to spread the information in this book far and wide. The practice is hand to heart practice. And the book is called Good Morning, I Love You because the author, Shauna Shapiro, who's a PhD from Stanford, brings her hand to heart each morning and says, Good morning, I love you. And the idea is to connect with your own humanity, as perfectly imperfect as it is, and connecting with your own shortcomings and problems and issues in a very compassionate and soft and kind way. What I would offer is that I struggled for a long time with saying good morning, I love you, or good afternoon, I love you, and how I have adapted it and I find more accessible for many of the people that I work with is literally hand to heart. And right hand to heart, left hand to heart, doesn't matter which one. I offer this tool very, very often in yoga with the idea that when we connect our hand to heart and press the heel of your hand or the palm of your hand just in towards that heart space, it releases oxytocin. And if when you do that, you are pausing and being present, you notice that you feel better. And you feel better because this hand to heart releases oxytocin, which is a feel-good hormone. And so from there, you can actually connect with who you are. And what I find is that people who do this daily really soften in their judgments towards themselves, and they can show up in a much more present and whole and healthy way for all aspects of their life, including sexuality. And I will offer that it's quite addictive once you start doing it, and it just feels amazing. So it's a chance to connect to you, and mindfulness is a chance to connect to you. And when you tap into mindfulness and tap into compassion or kindness to self, when you do a lot of hand to heart, it is very hard to be mean to yourself on a regular basis. You will notice when you're mean to yourself if you start doing this practice daily. And so highly recommend. And I wanted to offer at this point a moment of mindfulness practice to actually allow yourself to practice connecting with yourself. And so how I like to do this is find a comfortable seat wherever you are. And if you're driving, you can listen, but please opt out of closing your eyes and being too mindful. So if it's safe for you, ground your sit bones into wherever you happen to be sitting. And if you're walking, perhaps pause, step up to the side. Can you pause in your walk or your exercise and ground your feet into the earth beneath you? And take a moment to just connect with your feet or your sit bones, grounding into whatever firmness and stability lies underneath. And tilt your pelvis forward, tilt that pelvic bowl, rock it forward so you're sitting right atop your ischial spines. And stack your vertebrae one atop the other, all the way up your spine through your neck. Crown of your head reaches towards the sky, neck is long, and drop your shoulders. And take a moment to take in a deep breath here, in through your nose and out through your mouth, noticing how you feel. Hands can rest lightly on your thighs to start. Take in another long, deep inhale through your nose and a huge exhale through your mouth. Bring your left hand to heart and right hand to top. And gently press the heel of your hand into the heart space underneath you. Notice the skin of the top hand press into the skin on the bottom hand, and take in a long, huge inhale through your nose and an exhale through your mouth. And pause here, noticing that even taking a few deep breaths sends tingles into your fingers and your toes. Imagine if you could just take a few deep breaths, a few times a day, hand to heart, eyes closed, noticing how much better you feel here. Once again, take a long, sweet, deep inhale through your nose and out your mouth. Enjoy again how good it feels. Eyes closed if it serves you, or if it's too uncomfortable, gaze light a few feet in front of you. Once again, take another long, deep inhale and an exhale. And take a moment to pause here and think about how you feel. What in this moment feels good? What do you notice? Does that hand to heart feel good? Can you connect with your heart underneath? Perhaps you can feel your heartbeat, perhaps not. But connect to the fact that you have a heart and you are a human who's moving through this world, doing the best you can, given your current circumstances and situation exactly as it is. Take in another long, deep inhale. Tuck it into that pocket behind your heart that perhaps feels stuck, nourishing it, filling it with breath, and exhale, letting things go, judgments, frustrations, resentment, anger. Take in a long, deep, sweet inhale once again through your nose, nourishing yourself fully. And exhale, remembering that the breath is always available to you. Not just here in this moment of mindful peace, but wherever you are, you can breathe in and breathe out. Noticing that it feels good, feels a bit more spacious. You feel a bit more kind and a bit more nourished. Taking in a long, deep inhale once again through your nose and an exhale through your mouth. Enjoying the tingles. Notice what might feel good. And if your mind is wandering, grace and compassion towards that. Of course it's wandering. Perhaps mindfulness is unfamiliar for you. Allow the wander and come back to the hand to heart sensation. Connect back to your heart. Notice your sit bones on the earth underneath you. Notice that you are safe and secure. Draw your attention back to the heart space. Breathe into it once again, long, deep inhale. And an exhale. Enjoying it. Noticing the oxytocin, perhaps from that hand to heart. Press in gently once again, giving yourself a little hug and a little gift. Long, deep inhale through your nose and out through your mouth. Slowly lower your hands to your thighs and open your eyes and let the light back in. And just take a moment to notice how you feel in this moment and truly allow yourself to enjoy it. So I offer that practice as a short practice, less than 5 minutes, of a way to connect back to yourself and to feel good. And I am a mindfulness practical person. And so you do not have to learn how to sit on a mat and meditate for 45 minutes a day to enjoy the benefits of mindfulness. And in fact, practicing mindful sex is one way to tap back into mindfulness, reconnect with yourself, and experience some of the benefits. The other way to do it is to tap into simple mindfulness and learn to be mindful in other areas of your life so that you can then bring it to perhaps more challenging areas if sex happens to be one of those. And how I like to do that is to use any app. Any of them is fine. I don't want to promote any specific one here since it's CME. But there are lots of free ones and paid ones. It doesn't matter to me. Pick a 3-minute mindfulness exercise or a 5-minute mindfulness exercise. Over time, you can go up to 10 minutes, but more even isn't better. Push play and do what they say. You can also, there are tons of free mindfulness opportunities online. I offer a number on YouTube that are free, as do many other fellow physicians. And choose the length that works for you, knowing it'll be uncomfortable when you first start and you just begin to practice. In mindfulness, we say what you practice grows. So you can practice doing it during sex. You can practice it during a mindful walk. You can practice it as you put your hand on the door when you go in to see a patient. You take in a long, deep inhale and an exhale and just practice being present in the moment. And notice how things just feel a bit more easeful. And then when you've practiced it in places outside the bedroom, it's a lot easier to bring it to the bedroom itself. So as I get towards the end of this talk, just a couple of things to mention, which is that mindfulness is good for you and it's good for your own experience of sex. It's also a tip and a tool that you can share with patients. Many of them may practice mindfulness and many of them don't. And so it's a simple way to show them perhaps breathing techniques or hand-to-heart techniques that may actually help them with their own experiences, whether it be challenges with sex or life or anything else. Mindfulness is a tool that helps honestly with everything. The other thing is to practice mindfulness before something difficult. So 5 minutes of mindfulness before a difficult day, 5 minutes of mindfulness if you have a lot of thought churn around sex, or even if you don't, even practicing 3 to 5 minutes of some quick mindful practice before a date with your partner or a date with yourself can actually totally up-level the experience. Mindfulness up-levels and changes the parasympathetic nervous system and the gray matter in your brain. So as you practice it over time, it will change your experience of otherwise pleasurable experiences and bring them up to sort of a technicolor state. And so I offer it as a tool to improve sex and lots of other things. And then I just want to end with this idea that mindful sex is where it's at, and it's where it's at for you. And so we often, as women physicians, do things because we think it's better for other people, or will make things better or the way they're supposed to be. Mindfulness, because it eliminates the judgment, actually makes things better for you. And so practicing it makes it feel good for you. Usually that makes it feel good for whoever you happen to be with. And without judgment, it just feels that much better. With presence and being in the moment and tapping into what you feel like and what things feel like in your body can make things so, so much better. So I encourage you to try it and let us all know how things go. I am available anytime if you have questions about practicing mindfulness or any of these mindful coaching tools that can be applied, honestly, not just to sex, but to all your relationships and to all the challenges that perhaps you may struggle with in your life. So thank you so much once again for listening. I am Jessie Mahoney. You can find me at Pause and Presence or JessieMahoneyMD.com. Thanks so much for listening. And thank you so much, Sonia, for having me on to share these thoughts. I actually had a tremendously fun time pulling this together and bringing together my experience in the program and my experience as a mindfulness aficionado and yoga teacher, and then combining that with coaching and combining it with sex. It's fascinating how when you bring all these things together, there's so many overlapping tools, so many learnings, and just so much growth in each and every one of us when we choose to show up for it. So thank you all so much for listening. Have a beautiful day and a beautiful week ahead. The light in me shines and reflects the light in each and every one of you.